right. Okay, so we're live. So Ruth chapter 3. So remember last week where Ruth met Boaz and how he had just showed her such kindness and such favor. You know, he had filled up her with all the barley and he was just so kind to her, and he had blessed her beyond a slave servant. Remember, she was a foreigner from Moab, and he actually treated her like she was a maidservant. And so we kind of went over that last week, how Jesus has taken us in, and we're no longer foreigners and enemies of God, but how we are now considered children of God. And so we kind of really set that up. And at the end of last week, she had come back and was told Naomi, I met this man named Boaz, and he had told me to stay on the narrow road. He told me to just stay on this path and don't look to the younger men. He was going to protect her and keep her safe. And Naomi was like, yes, stay on that path. She started to see what God was doing. She started to finally realize that God had a plan and a purpose for all the pain that she'd endured and all the things that she had gone through. And so now we're going to start seeing that plan completely unfold, and we're going to finish out both chapters today. So we're going to start in chapter 3, verse 1. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, My daughter, shall I not seek security for you, that it may be well with you? And so she's saying, I'm going to seek security for you. I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm going to show you the customs of our land, the laws of our land, because remember, she wouldn't have known all of those. So now she's going to start giving her some advice here. Now Boaz, whose young woman you were with, is he not our relative? In fact, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Winnowing barley was when they would take the barley that they had harvested, and they would go to the west side of Bethlehem or wherever, where the wind was. They'd go later in the evening when the wind was at its highest, and they would take the shafts and they'd throw it up in the air. And they would let the wind just take the light part of the shaft and take it away, and then the heavy barley would fall to the ground. And that's what they would use. They'd pick that up, and that's what they'd use to make the bread or to make with the grain. And so this is where he would have been in the evening. He would have gone down there where the highest winds were in the west part of Bethlehem, and he would have been chaffing the wheat, chaffing the barley on the threshing floor. Therefore, wash yourself and anoint yourself and put on your best garment and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. So therefore, wash yourself. Ladies, it's okay to be bougie. We've been sitting there talking about shaving our legs and everything else. When you're a married woman, okay, or you're dating, it's okay to, put on makeup and make yourself presentable and put on nice clothing, nice garments. There's nothing wrong with that. Make sure we're modest. Make sure everything's covered up. It's only for your husband, right? It's only for them. It's not to attract other men, and it's not to make other women jealous. But it is okay to be attractive and to take good care of ourselves and to have good hygiene. And, it's important. It's an important thing. God made us beautiful women, and he made men visual. And so you want to be, beautiful for your husbands, and they don't always need to see us like trolls. I sent a meme to Steve the other day where it literally said, it's either two ways. Either I'm your trophy wife or I'm like the troll that underneath the bridge that makes you think you have to tell riddles to cross it. He didn't understand it. I'm like, well, and I'm like, it's just like we're either all or nothing, aren't we? We're like either in our yoga pants with our hair on top of our head and no makeup, or we're like bouged out. It's like, and I think we've really come that way in this society. You come from an era where it used to be women always dressed nice and in dresses and the hair and the makeup, everything was always done. I couldn't even imagine having to live like that today. It's so much maintenance. But we do want to take care of ourselves, and it's okay. And so I liked here how, therefore, wash your face and anoint yourself, put some perfume on, put on your best garments, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. And then it shall be, verse 4, when he lies down, that you shall notice the place where he lies, and you shall go in, uncover his feet, and lie down, and he will tell you what you should do. And she said to her, all that you say to me, I will do. Listen to your wise, godly counsel. If you have people in your life, which you guys do, you guys are blessed to have people in your life that just have walked a little longer than you have in this earth, know a little bit more than you do, listen to them. Don't make decisions in your life, especially big decisions, without getting a multitude of counselors. There's a safety in a multitude of counselors. There's wisdom in finding godly counsel and taking their advice, especially if they're gearing you in the scriptures. Don't just take anybody's advice. Make sure it's a scriptural based advice. But Naomi was giving her advice, and she was telling her, this is what you need to do. And she said, I will do what you say. I will honor the fact that you've lived longer. You know this land better than I do. And I'm going to take seriously the wisdom that you're giving me, especially you young people. Don't make decisions without having some older, wiser wisdom helping you make big decisions. Okay? Who? Oh, I'm sorry. That's okay. Maybe next time. So she went down to the threshing floor and did according to all that her mother-in-law instructed her. And after Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was cheerful, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain, and she came softly, uncovered his feet, and laid down. Now this was a custom. This was not her being a loose woman. There's commentaries out there, or there's false teachings out there that said that she was like, this was a sexual thing and she was a loose woman, but that's not it at all. It was a sign of submission. It was a sign of honor. Like, I want to submit to you. I need your protection. It kind of reminded me of the woman who, the prostitute who went to Jesus' feet and washed his feet with her hair and her tears. Just that submission, just that honor. And I need you. I need your protection. I need your. I need you. And so it's how we should be with Jesus. We come down to his feet and we lie down at his feet and we say, I need you, Jesus. I desire you. I want you. And so after Boaz, okay, so then verse 8. Now it happened at midnight that the man was startled and turned himself, and there a woman was lying at his feet. And he said, who are you? And she answered, I am Ruth, your maidservant. She doesn't even call herself a slave servant anymore. She doesn't even call herself the foreigner anymore. She's now saying, I am Ruth, your maidservant, because he had called her maidservant. He had said to her, I have redeemed you out of that. A slave servant had no rights in the land of Israel, but a maidservant had rights, could eat at the king's table, could eat at the master's table, could also bear children and be an heir. She could bear an heiress. Okay? So now she's saying, I am Ruth the maidservant. Take your maidservant under your wing, for you are a close relative. And this is what Jesus has done for us. He took us out of the slave market of the enemy and then made us a bondservant, made us a servant of him now, calls us friend, calls us daughter, calls us bride. Okay? And then it says, under your wing. That's that same language that we used last time in chapter 2 and verse 12. The Lord repay your work, and full reward be given to you by the Lord God of Israel, under whose wing you have come for refuge. Remember we talked about that under your wing literally is like a baby bird that's wounded, that sits under the wing of the mother, and the mother protects the baby bird. That is what God does for us. He took us out of our brokenness, out of our pain, out of our sin, and He's tucked us under his wing to protect us now, to heal us, to make us whole again. And he keeps us there to continue to protect us as life comes and trials come and tribulation comes, and we sit under the wing. So it's like that eagle's wing that we sit under. And that's what that wing there again. Take your maidservant under your wing for protection, for guarding, for you are a close relative. Now we're getting into the kinship law. When in Israel, when a man died and left a widow, if she had no heir, which we know that she was barren, she had no heir, then a close relative could take her, marry her, they could have a child, and the child would carry out the name. So Amalek's name, remember, because of the curse, Amalek died, and then both sons died, and there was no heir, so technically that name is now dead. There's no lineage, and that was very, very important to ancient Israel. And so she tells him, hey, you're a close relative of mine. In other words, she's asking him to marry her. She's asking him to take her in the kinship law. And then he said, blessed are you for the Lord, my daughter, for you have shown more kindness in the end than at the beginning, in that you did not go after young men, whether poor or rich. honoring her and saying, wow, you could have gone after other young men, somebody more your age, better looking, more buff. You could have gone after people with lots of money. You could have gone after the fleshly desires. But you've chosen to come after me. It's predicted that Boaz was pretty old, much older than her, a lot older than her. But she went after his heart. She went after who he was as a man, not what he could offer her or what she could have gotten in the flesh. You know what I mean? She saw the heart of Boaz. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you request. For all the people of my town know that you are a virtuous woman. Where have we heard that word virtuous woman before? Can you remember? Jimmy? Proverbs 31. For you are a virtuous woman. Who can find themselves a virtuous woman? For her worth is far worth more than rubies and gold. Proverbs 31. He's saying you're a Proverbs 31 woman. Now she's from Moab. We know that she came out of the land of Proverbs 7 women. She came out of the land of Jezebel, not Jezebel herself, but that spirit, just that sexual immorality and that looseness and that paganism and orgies and just idol worship, like you wouldn't believe, the Baal worship that was over there in that land. And she come out from the Proverbs 7 woman, and now God has turned her into a Proverbs 31 woman. Is that not our testimony? Amen. How Jesus has taken each one of us out of the Proverbs 7 woman, the harlot, sexually immoral, drugs, alcohol, idol worship. You know, we were worshiping something in our sin, you know, whether some, you know, he took us out of that. Proverbs 7 is turning us into a Proverbs 31 women. Women who are hardworking, women who are good mothers, women who are good wives, women who have wisdom to where we can, you know, think of having different businesses, and we're smart and we're intelligent and we're virtuous and we love God, right? We're modest, we're meek, we're quiet-spirited. He's tamed down the Jezebel or the Eve in us, right? And is turning us into a Proverbs 31 woman. And that's exactly how he sees that in her. And now, verse 12. Now it is true that I am a close relative. However, there is a relative closer than I. Stay this night, and in the morning it shall be that if you will perform the duty of a close relative for you, good, let him do it. But if he does not want to perform the duty for you, then I will perform the duty for you. As the Lord lives, lie down until morning. So there was a relative that was actually closer to her or to Naomi than him. So there was somebody that was a little closer in the bloodline. So he had to technically go and ask him if he wanted to perform the kinship duty, the kinsman duty. And so he says, lie down, we'll worry about this in the morning. But he says, if he doesn't want to do it, then I'll be happy to marry you. I'll be happy to be your protector and be your redeemer. So she lay at his feet until morning, and she arose before one could recognize another. Then he said, do not let it be known that the woman came to the threshing floor for the reputation. He didn't want people talking, gossip, lies. This is one of those where we talk to you guys about we shouldn't even let the appearance of evil be named among us, like where we want to even refrain from the appearances of all evil. That's why we're not alone with the opposite sex. We don't have boys stay the night at our house, because we're presenting to our neighbors. We're presenting to people that we're Christian. This is why we don't hang out in bars. This is why we don't do some of those things, because we have to be careful. We never know who's watching, you know, and we don't know what, and rumors start really easily, right? And so we got to be kind of careful what we do and what we're out there doing, because we are representing Jesus Christ here on this earth. We are written epistles and we are ambassadors. And so, I mean, sometimes God does call us to go into bars and evangelize to people and things like that. But, you know, just as a practice, like you'll hear people say, I go to the bar every weekend. You know, I don't know, it doesn't matter. You know, I still love God. And it's like, no, I don't know. Probably not wise. We're supposed to refrain from all appearances of evil. Or I live with my boyfriend and girlfriend, but we don't have sex. You know, we're to refrain from all appearances of evil, and we're to use wisdom, you know. So also verse 15, also he said, bring the shawl that is on you and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 ephahs of barley and laid it on her. Then she went to the city. Just as he just provided more food for her and Naomi while he goes and takes care of this, he also wanted to have like a good faith thing, like, I'm going to go handle this. I've got you. I'm protecting you. This is what Christ does for us. He protects us. He provides for us. He loves us, even when sometimes we don't know what's going on. We don't always understand, why is this always happening in my life? Why is this happening? But Know that Christ is providing in the middle of these storms, in the middle of these trials. When she came to her mother-in-law, she said, "Is that your daughter? Is that my daughter?" And then she told her all that the man had done for her. Verse 17, and she said, "These 6 infants of barley he gave me, for he said to me, 'Do not go empty-handed to your mother-in-law.' Then she said, 'Sit still, my daughter, until you know how the matter will turn out. For the man will not rest until he's concluded the matter to this day.'" God is fighting on our behalf at all times. He's got angels fighting for us. Jesus literally is mediating for us. He sits at the right hand of the Father, mediating for us day and night, just advocating for us. Be still. Be still, my daughters. Be still while you're going through these trials and these tribulations, what you're going through when you're waiting on God for an answer. When you're waiting, and it seems like sometimes we wait a day, sometimes we wait weeks, months, and guys, sometimes we wait years on God in certain circumstances in our lives. I waited 13 plus years to get out of my dark soul night, my wilderness and dark soul night, pleading my case before God, and nothing was lifting. If anything, I was getting worse, and that's how I ended up in my dark soul night. But we need to be still and know that He is God. Be still and know that He is working on your behalf. You could not have anyone working on your behalf better than God. You could not have a bigger army and a more powerful God full of absolute love for you working on your behalf. So be still during those times. Be in your prayer closet. Turn on the worship music. Be in your word. Don't let it defeat you. Don't let it worry you. What does worry add one measure of day, one day to one's life? It doesn't. We know that worry and stress actually takes away from our life. Now we're going to go into chapter 4. Now Boaz went up to the gate and sat down there, and behold, the close relative of whom Boaz had spoken came to Boaz and said, "Come inside, friend, sit down here." So he came aside and sat down. The gate is the town hall where everyone used to meet. All the elders would meet there. The men would kind of meet there. Remember in Proverbs 31, all the men at the gate say how blessed you are because of who your wife is. We still want that today. We want men to know that our husbands are blessed because of who their wives are, right? And as you guys are preparing for, betrothal and being mothers, you want God to be preparing your hearts as Proverbs 31 women, that you're going to be those dutiful wives and the dutiful mothers, and that your husbands will be so blessed by having you by their side walking this life together. But that's what the town hall is. They would all get together and they would make business contracts and they would talk about towns things. But that's also where they would just do a lot of who shot John and just talking. And man, do you know who his wife is? And he has all the fine clothes and there's always food on the table and they keep a clean house and their kids are so well made, right? That's what that Proverbs 31 where they're talking about that. So that's what that is, this town's thing. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and sit down here. So they sat down, and they said to the close relative, Naomi, who has come back from the country of Moab, sold the piece of land which belonged to our brother Elimelech. So the land needed redeemed. Elimelech would have had land, so he either A, sold the land before he went off to Moab, or the land was taken, I'm not sure, or Naomi's trying to sell the land now, doesn't really say, but there's a land here that needs redeemed to be put back into the Elimelech family name. And I brought to inform you, saying, buy it back in the presence of the inhabitants and the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if you will not redeem it, then tell me, and I may know. For there is no one but you to redeem it, and I am next after you. And he said, I will redeem it. So the guy says, yeah, I'll redeem the land. I'll go ahead, I'll buy the land. And then Boaz throws him a little curveball here. Then Boaz said, on the day you buy that field from the hand of Naomi, you must also buy it from Ruth. In other words, you have to marry Ruth. She comes with the package. The Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to perpetrate the name of the dead through his inheritance, so that there can be an heir that then keeps the name of the Elimelech name alive. And he's like, oh, wait a minute. I thought it was just land we were talking about here. He says, and the close relative said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I ruin my own inheritance. Now, he didn't deny Ruth or want to marry Ruth because of who she was, that she was a Moabite woman. It's because he probably likely already had other kids, and it would have messed up the inheritance for his children because he would have been to marry her would have meant another heir from another line, and he didn't want to mess up the inheritance that he had going on over here with his other children. And so he says, you redeem, so I run my own inheritance. I don't want to ruin my own inheritance. You redeem my right of redemption for yourself, for I cannot redeem it. Verse 7. Now this was the custom in former times in Israel. Now this was the custom in former times. When the writer actually wrote this was no longer a custom, and that's why he's telling you this. So it wasn't a law, it was just a custom. And it says, redeeming and exchanging to confirm anything, one man took off his sandal and gave it to another, and this was a confirmation in Israel. Therefore the close relative said to Boaz, buy it for yourself. So he took off his sandal, and Boaz said to the elders and all the people, you are witnesses this day that I have bought all that was Amalek's and all that was Chaldonians and Mahlon's, those are his sons that died, from the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the widow of Mahlon, I have acquired as my wife, to perpetrate the name of the dead through his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brethren, and from his position at the gate you are witnesses this day. And all the people who were at the gate, and the elders said, we are witnesses. The Lord make the woman who is coming to your house like Rachel and Leah, the two who built the house of Israel. May you prosper in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. When they refer, and they're giving him a blessing now, they're praying blessings over him. When they mention Leah and Rachel, both of them were barren at one time, and then God opened their wounds, and so they're saying, may, because she was barren. Remember, Ruth didn't have any children from her husband, and so she was technically barren. So they're saying, may the Lord open her womb like they did Leah and Rachel. May your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, because of the offspring which the Lord will give you from the young woman. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And when he went into her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son. Suddenly she can conceive. That's what I wrote there. This woman was barren for years and could not conceive when she was in the cursed land with the disobedient husband. But now she's left all that behind and has given her life to the God of Israel, to the people of Israel, has become a virtuous woman, and God has suddenly opened her womb. What a beautiful testimony of redemption. What a beautiful testimony of how God has redeemed us, how Christ has redeemed us out of the curses of our old life, out of the curses of our family lineage, out of all that stuff, and has brought us into his promised land. And has brought us into his wing, and has brought us into his family now, and given us completely new natures. We're born again. Then the woman said to Naomi, the women of the village said to Naomi, blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a close relative, and may his name be famous in Israel. Not only is Ruth redeemed, but now Naomi is redeemed. She now has an heir. She's now a grandmother. And remember when she called herself Mara? Do not call me Naomi anymore when she come back from Moab, but call me Mara, for I am afflicted. For God has dealt bitterly with me. Now it's back to Naomi. She's the pleasant one. She's blessed. God's favor sits upon her once again. And so sometimes, like we talked about when we went over chapter 1, how we can be in these places and think, man, am I cursed? Is he mad at me? Has he dealt bitterly with me? But to stay focused on the present, God knows your future. Stay obedient to God. Stay under his wings. Stay on the narrow road. Continue to do what you know is right before God, and he will make all things right. He's completely restored Naomi here. And may he be to you a restorer of life. That is who Jesus is, a restorer of life. We were dead in our sins and trespasses. We had the wrath of God abiding on us. We were enemies of God. And who is Jesus? A restorer of life. He brings restoration. He takes us out of that death of our sins and trespasses and gives us new life and makes us righteous and makes us holy. And we now live in him. We now have a new life. Our eyes have been opened. We're no longer blind. We can now see. Let him be a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age, for your daughter-in-law who loves you is better to you than 7 sons who has bore him. The word 7 there literally in the prophetic means completion. She's better to have that one daughter-in-law than to have 7 blood sons. You are more blessed. Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her bosom and became a nurse to him. Literally, the word nurse here is like foster mom. So she literally would have taken him and raised him, because that's what this whole thing was. Just a new line, to give Naomi that new line, to bring Elimelech's line out. Also, the neighbor women gave him the name, saying, there is a son born of Naomi, and they called him Obed. He is the father of Jesse and the father of David. So this is literally, Obed is the grandpa to David. How amazing is that? That is so awesome. King David, the man after God's own heart. This is his granddad that was just born to a Moabite woman, to a Gentile, to a Proverbs 7 that God redeemed. And let her name be forever in history, forever in man's history and in God's history. Now, this is the genealogy of Perez. Perez begot Hezron. Hezron begot Ram. Ram begot Amminadab. Amminadab begot Nahshon. Nahshon begot Salmon. Salmon begot Boaz. Boaz begot Obed. Obed begot Jesse. Jesse begot David. What lineage came through that? Who comes through the line of David? The line? Jesus. Jesus is born in this line. What redemption. This is literally the tribe of Judah. This is the tribe of Judah. And we just watched the tribe and how God redeemed a woman and then made her the lineage of Jesus Christ, our Redeemer. And that's what the book of Ruth is all about, is redemption. A story of redemption. Does anyone remember what the word redemption means? We're going to go back to Colossians real quick. The word redemption.
I know what it means, but I'm trying to calculate it. It's like to redeem means to make good. Like I honestly cash into, because I think there's 2 meanings to it, but it's like to, make good or.
It's to literally be bought out of the slave market. To be bought out of the slave market with a purchase price. It's to purchase something, to redeem something. And so I'm going to go back to Colossians here real quick, because I want to remind you guys of that redemption in our own life. We're going to go to Colossians chapter 1, starting in verse 12. Giving thanks to the Father, who has qualified us to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in the light. That's our salvation. He has delivered us from the power of darkness and conveyed us into the kingdom of the Son of his love, in whom we have redemption, through his blood, the forgiveness of sins. Remember, we talked about this when I did Colossians a couple of times now, that literally you need to picture yourselves in the old slave markets. When they used to bring the slaves over from Africa, they'd put them in the middle of the town. And they would stand there, and then the masters would come, and they would examine each slave to see, how strong they were, how much work could they get out of them, how healthy they were. And then they would offer a price for the slave to then be masters of their land, or to master them, to be slaves to their land. That's what we were. We were literally slaves in a slave market. Our master was Satan. And we did all that he told us to do because of our sin nature. There was no way out. There is no way out of that slave market. There's no one that can buy you. There's nothing that can redeem you in this earthly world. We are born in sin through Adam. Satan, it literally says that we are Satan's kids in 1 John. We are in a slave market. There's no way out. And then here comes Jesus. And he sheds his blood. And that's the purchase price. That's what it said. Satan says, oh, you want her? It's going to cost you your blood. It's going to cost you your life. And Jesus says, challenge accepted. And he gets up on that cross and he sheds his blood. and he takes the full wrath of God upon himself that was due to us. He paid a debt we could never have paid. We could have never bought ourselves out of that slave market. We could have never worked our way out of it. We could have never earned our way out of it. It had to be a free gift. It had to come from Jesus Christ. His blood had to be shed. Someone had to pay the penalty for our sin that we did against God. And he come down and left heaven and paid the price for us. And he handed Satan his blood and said, she's mine now. She's mine. And he grabbed us up out of that slave market of sin, and he put us into a new market, a new slave market, a bond slave market where he's now the master. He's the Lord. And with that comes peace and joy and protection and healing and love. And now we're willing slaves. We're called bondservants now. Bondservant is a willing slave, someone who wants to stay in that land, who wants God to be their master, who wants him to be their Lord, and is willing to do whatever he tells us to do, even when it doesn't feel good in the flesh. He's our Lord now. He's our master now. Remember when Jesus says, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do what I tell you? Because he's our Lord and he's our master and he paid the price, we do what he says. We walk as he walked. We want to look like him, grow in him, mature in him. But that's what redemption is. And that's what he did, is he redeemed us out of the slave market with the purchase price of his own blood. And we didn't deserve it. We deserved hell. God would have been just and righteous and loving even to have sent us all to hell. But instead he redeemed us. And so when we're done with Ruth, you single girls, I want you to understand, don't look to the men who look good, who have the cute bodies, who can provide all the material things of this world. Single ladies, look for your Boaz. Find a man whose heart is after God, whose heart is towards God. Don't get caught up in the shiny things of this world. Be very careful with men who claim to know God. Everybody's a Christian in America, and they become real Christian when they want to date you. They do. They become, oh boy, do they become Christian when they just want to get what they want. I'm going to end this right here.